Lawmakers want Biden to play a bigger role pushing tech legislation, right? Now, I highlighted the part that I want you guys to pay attention to. Democrats and Republicans, this is the uniparty that we're talking about, are working on half a dozen or major categories of legislation dealing with online privacy and children's safety. Now, I want you guys to pay attention to this. This is the first thing that they start with: online privacy and children's safety. This is the same government, right, that didn't mind snooping on all Americans, even though it's completely against the Fourth Amendment. But again, now all of a sudden they care about online privacy, right? But that's just the way in, right? That's the Trojan horse. Anyways, and if you don't believe me, bear with me. The transparency of companies' data collection practices, accountability for content posted on social media. Now, this seems like a very innocent passage if you're just reading this, and it's supposed to be that way. You're supposed to read over this and be like, they're doing this for online privacy and children's safety. And you're supposed to read over the accountability for content posted on social media. How do you enforce this accountability? You de-anonymize people, right? You tie IDs to your username. And if you still think I'm a conspiracy theorist, they're already doing it in Australia, and we covered it not too long ago. They're doing it in France as well. Australians could be required to provide identification to join social media sites or set up anonymous dating profiles under proposed reforms designed to stamp out online bullying and harassment. Again, You see the guys, child, data protection. It's for your benefit. But the reason this is happening, the reason this is happening is because the gatekeepers of information are losing their monopoly on information. So their reflex reaction is to try to censor the opposition. And this explains all the censorship on Twitter. This explains the censorship on YouTube. This explains the censorship on a magnitude of social media platforms. And again, I think a lot of people are getting lost in the political nonsense, which is, it's the left trying to censor the right. That's not what's happening. What's happening is essentially, Phil, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I just want to interject this before you continue. Being a child of the 80s, okay, I just want to point out bullying existed before the internet, and the government was not able to stop bullying. And there was physical people being bullied physically in schools and almost anywhere, in shopping malls. So there's police, there's all these levers of control, and yet that bullying never stopped. So just putting that out there for everyone.
Dude, and look, it's exactly what you said, Phil. The reforms are designed to quash bullying, trolling, harassment, stalking, and sexual abuse online performed by people hiding behind anonymous accounts. So why is this happening? Because every time the IMF tweets, every time there is a politician posting a video on YouTube, have you noticed recently they got rid of the dislike button? Why is that? Because videos were getting ratioed, and this goes back to this concept that I want you guys to remember. The internet disintermediated information, and now it is disintermediating money. And governments don't like that. It takes away their power. It's a threat to their power. So they're freaking out. They're melting down. Don't get lost on the political side, because if you see it from the political lens, you'll see, it's the left trying to censor the right. That's just this moment in history. Back in the 50s in the United States, something called the McCarthy era, it was the right trying to censor the left. The problem here is that no human being or government or state should have the power to shut someone's speech. If you think that's a radical idea, look at the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. It's there for a reason. There's a reason there's freedom of speech, and that's because the Founding Fathers realized that if you wanted to censor, the person censoring is the one deciding what information is valid or not, and that sets a very dangerous precedent in this censoring. And if you still think I'm crazy, check out this article by The New Yorker. Dan Bongino is the big business of returning Trump to power. Now, again, put the political tropes aside. They're irrelevant. Like I said, back in the 50s, it was the right persecuting the left. That's not what's important here. What's important here is pay attention to the words being used, okay? So anyways, Bongino draws an estimated 8.5 million radio listeners a week, making him the fourth most listened to host in America ahead of Mark Levin, Glenn Beck, and other big names, according to Talkers magazine, which covers the industry. Though he came to broadcasting only after 3 unsuccessful runs for Congress, he now commands a Fox News program on Saturday nights, a podcast that has ranked #1 on iTunes, and a website that repackages stories into some of the most highly trafficked items on social media. In recent months, and this is why they're freaking out, everyone. In recent months, according to Facebook data, his page has attracted more engagement than those of The Times, The Washington Post, and the Wall Street Journal combined. Those are the gatekeepers of information. If you remember back in the 2000s, weapons of mass destruction, they used these gatekeepers of information to peddle that story. But now, because of the rise of the internet and the rise of independent content creators, specifically on YouTube, it's Tim Pool, it's Steven Crowder, right? It's Joe Rogan. It essentially allows people to circumvent the institutions and go directly to people and get their information directly from people. So when you see articles like this, right? Oh, we're trying to stop something, right? Or we're trying to essentially stop, miscommunication, or we're trying to stop, dangerous whatever their excuses are, right? This is why this is happening. The reason that this is happening is because these independent content creators are getting so much attention. In fact, they're getting much more attention than the legacy corporate media that the government used to be able to capture. Anyways, it keeps going. In the long run, Bongino's most significant impact may not come from what he says on his podcast. My goal is for my content to be the least interesting thing I did, he told me. He used his money and his influence to foster technology startups such as Parler, Rumble, and AlignPay that are friendly to right-wing views. But here's the thing, right? Here's the thing. Isn't that capitalism? Isn't that allowing people to talk freely? Aren't you trying to serve? Someone has essentially trying to find the content that they see fit, whether it's right or left, is irrelevant to us. So if someone needed something, Bongino's the entrepreneur saying, here's his network. This article by an American institution, by an American publicist, is essentially arguing against that. They're essentially saying that's dangerous. Like, this is how crazy it is, right? These companies are intended to withstand traditional pressure campaigns, including advertising boycotts like the one that Media Matters prompted in 2019, based on old radio interviews in which Fox host Tucker Carlson described women as extremely primitive and Iraqis as monkeys. Carlson said, "What scares me about Bongino is that this guy could end up owning and controlling or directly building the infrastructure that operationalizes a whole range of extremism." He continued, "There used to be lines. You could say, okay, PayPal, don't let the January 6 people recruit money to pay for buses." Here's the thing, right? Here's the thing again. They think it's all.
Let me censor you.
They think it's all right to not only censor who you're able to pay and not pay, but what type of information you should get and should not get. Mind you, this is an American publication. Anyways,
that shit crazy.
This new alternative infrastructure is not going to stop that. If an uprising organizes online, he said, there will be a whiplash effect. Everyone will say, how did this happen? Well, it's been happening. So again, put the politics aside. Look at the precedent that they're trying to set. And if you still think I'm crazy, and then I'll shut up. This is Glenn Greenwald, right? He is the famous reporter that broke the original Edward Snowden story, right? He was the one that broke the Snowden story, the Snowden leaks. He used to work at The Guardian before he started noticing that, whoa, The Guardian isn't letting me run specific stories. That's weird. Anyways, he says, the New Yorker profile of Dan Bongino by CNN's S. Nas is so predictable you could write it yourself without reading it. It laments that the new online media ecosystem Bongino uses is built to prevent censors like Media Matters from banning ideas as if that is a bad thing. And that is absolutely terrifying. They want to ban ideas. And you already saw the PayPal thing in there. These people are going to go savagely after Bitcoin. Some of them are already doing it. because they can't ban the transactions, right? And this is happening in the United States of America, which if you go and look at the Constitution, the First Amendment, freedom of speech. So these are the types of people that don't want Bitcoin to succeed. And the reason they don't want Bitcoin to succeed is because it takes away power away from them. We covered in the Daily Fail the IMF segment. Why is the IMF up in arms? Has nothing to do with poverty, has nothing to do with stability. It has to do with the fact that Bitcoin and the internet specifically is allowing people to circumvent those gatekeepers that used to be there for decades. And the internet is allowing people to talk amongst each other freely, is allowing to transact amongst each other freely. And they would like you to know, they would like you to believe that if it wasn't for them, the world would burn down. If it wasn't for their censorship of money and information, the world would explode. I would like to believe, and I know Phil believes that as well, is that we are not the problem. They are the problem.